In this video, we're going to be discussing finding area. And when we're talking about area, we are talking about a two-dimensional figure. So area is two dimensions. And the reason that area is two dimensions is because it has length and it has width. Those are the two dimensions. So length and width. Okay. If we were just talking about one dimension, if we were talking about one dimension, that would just be a line because it only has length. Okay. Three dimension has length, it has width, and it also has height. Length, width, and height. So anytime now that we're talking about two dimension, we're going to be talking about squares. And excuse me. And that can be written in a couple of different ways. So we could go units squared, or we could write square units. So as we look at this rectangle right here, we can see that at the top it is 2 1/3, we'll say units, and the width on the side is 2 units. And to find the area, we're going to count the squares. Area is always measured in squares. So here you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 full squares. And over here you can see we have partial squares. And each one of these partial squares is 1/3. So 1/3 and 2/3. So the area of this rectangle is 4 2/3 units. Units squared. Now later on in the year we'll discuss different ways of finding area, but today we're going to be focusing on counting up the actual squares and the parts of squares. So let's move on to another example here. Here's our next example. So again, area is measured in squares. Area is measured in squares. It's two-dimensional because it has both length and it has width. So counting the squares for this, whole squares, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 full squares. Then each of these parts is equal to 1/4. Now it's not drawn the greatest, but we're gonna imagine that this is drawn perfectly well. So these are 1/4 pieces, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So we have 9 whole squares and we have 3/4 of other squares. So for this one, it's 9 3/4 units squared. So the big thing for today's lesson is area. Area is measured in squares. Measured in squares. It has length. Oops. It has length and width. Length and width, and it's two dimensions. 2 dimensions. Okay, now let's move on to the practice part for the homework for today. And for the practice part of the homework today, we're going to be doing problems that have parentheses in it. And to do these, we're going to be talking about the order of operations. And one way to help us remember order of operations is the phrase, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." And that helps us remember that the first thing we do for order of operations is the what is in parentheses. Then we look at the exponents. If you're not familiar or if you don't remember what an exponent is if we would have something like 10 to the third power. This number up here, that's called an exponent. And as you can see, we don't have any of those in the problem for today. Then we go multiplication or division. And this is always from left to right. We always do multiplication or division from left to right. Then we do addition or subtraction also from left to right. So for our first sample problem here, we have 24 minus 8 in parentheses divided by 2 plus 5. So if we look at our order of operations, we have to start with parentheses first. So 24 subtract 8 is 16. So after I've got that done, I like to bring down the rest of the problem. So we have divided by 2 plus 5. Now we're going to look at exponents. We don't have any exponents. So we move down here to multiplication or division, again from left to right. So we have to go from left to right. We have division right here. So we have to do that first. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I'm done with that part of the problem. I'm going to bring down the remaining portion, which is plus 5. And I come to the last step here, which is addition or subtraction. So again, left to right, there's only 2 numbers left. There's only one problem left. So 8 plus 5 is 13. So following through this whole process, we get an answer of 13. Okay, let's do one more problem here. So again, we start with parentheses first. So parentheses in this problem are in the middle this time. 4 divided by 2 is 2. I'm done with that portion of the problem. So I bring down the rest of the problem. 5 plus 2 times 3. Now again, I don't have any exponents, so I come to multiplication or division. So I start on the left side of the problem, always left to right, and I go left to right. Multiplication comes before addition, so I have to do multiplication first. I have to do this second part of the problem first. 2 times 3 is 6. I'm done with that part of the problem. So I bring down my 5 plus addition or subtraction, left to right. 5 plus 6 is 11. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask your teacher, and have a good evening.